Hey, let's make something. Today we got 4 items for the feast table: turkey, goose, poultry, and game. So you can see here I'm making some bones for the various poultry legs. 2 turkey, 2 goose, and 4 for the game, which is going to be rabbit. Here I've got clay that's just a little bit of brown mixed into translucent, and I'm using my little plates to figure out how big I want each piece to be. So I know if I measure out the clay now and only use that much clay, it won't be too big for the plate. This is just the turkey, the goose, and the poultry is going to be 3 Cornish hens. The rabbit I will be making in a little bit. And here I'm making the hens using little silicone shaper tools to make sort of heart-shaped torsos for the birds. And then I have little balls that I'm turning into tiny drumsticks and wings. I'm not sure about these drumsticks. I think I made them a little too chunky at the ends. I prefer how the turkey and the goose came out to the hens, but you know what? It's okay. These silicone tools are really great to just get everything joined together. The goose, I used those leg bones and inserted them into the drumsticks. And looking at pictures of roast goose, I see that because their wings are so long, most chefs cut them off at the first joint. So I did that for these, and I just tucked them under the legs. And I'm using the grip of a X-Acto knife to texture the breast, because geese have, I guess because they have larger feathers, you get more of that goose flesh, as they say, look to them, than most other poultry. And the turkey. Wings are always a little tricky. I had to look at a lot of pictures to figure out what to do. You kind of have to make an S shape and then try to make it look more angular once it's attached. I'm showing you my method here. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward. But once you tuck it in place and attach that shoulder, not too bad. And for the rabbit here, I mixed pink clay in with translucent. And I wanted to do something a little bit different. That's why I picked rabbit for game instead of partridge or another bird. And I'm going to do it fried. They had pan frying at the time, and usually it was breaded, flour coated, so it would have like a thick, crunchy crust. So I'm adding some liquid Sculpey, liquid polymer clay that hardens in the oven. And then I'm going to attach some of that sand, which is from the dollar store. You can get bags of decorative sand in all different colors. This is just natural, of course. Yeah, not too bad. I like trying to figure out what will give different effects. And I thought with the rabbit, if it's wild rabbit, let's say, then maybe the same vendor would be selling foraged mushrooms. So I thought I would have this with some sauteed mushrooms. This is just gray and brown clay mixed together. And I rolled out balls for the caps, and the stems are made of a log of the same clay that I pre-baked. So those are hard, because I figured if I could cut off sections and then push the hard clay into the soft clay, it would compress it like a mushroom cap, and that worked pretty well. Here I've got translucent clay mixed with a tiny bit of yellow to be potatoes. it's nice because roasted potatoes are very easy to make out of clay. If you just kind of press down as you roll a ball on a surface, you can make it sort of oddly shaped, which I like for potatoes because it's as if they'd been peeled and maybe a little bit extra is cut off here and there. And then I just cut all of those into quarters. And here we have carrots and parsnips. Translucent clay with a bit of yellow and a bit of orange. And now I'm using chalk pastels. These come in sticks, but if you scrape them with an X-Acto knife, you can get this powder. So I'm using that to tint all these things so they look roasted. The potatoes are getting a warm yellow. And then orange mixed with brown to be sort of a warm, toasty brown, because the brown I have is quite dark. The same thing for the Cornish hens. I made those quite yellow under their browning to be a little bit different from the turkey and the goose. You'll see that I colored those slightly differently. I like a little variation when you're making a lot of things that look pretty much the same. Pastels are great for browning things because you can get that natural look across the top of the highest levels of an object to make it look as though that's where the heat was hitting it. And it's nice with the pastels that you sort of build up layers of color. For the goose, I mix some red in with the brown because in pictures of roast goose, they often have like a mahogany color. Geese are like ducks where the breast meat is also dark meat rather than white meat. So, and I'm using dark brown to sort of bring up the edges of that goose flesh, the texture that I added. It's nice how much you can change the color with the pastels, because as you saw, this is all the same color base clay, but then the different birds are going to be different colors. And the turkey, a nice brown. I let the pastels get on the bones, but I didn't color those intentionally, except right at the end I added a little bit of brown to the tips, as if that had roasted more. Here I've got a mix of Mod Podge and some of the pastels, because Mod Podge works as a glue as well as a glaze. So I figured if it peeks out from under the birds, it will just look like roasting juices. And in the back there, I've got a mix of sawdust, nutmeg, and green trimmings from some of my miniature plants. So it's dyed green, a nice bright green. And I'm using that to make stuffing. I've just added some more of that Mod Podge to it. So it's really piled up on the plate here, but as the Mod Podge dries, it will shrink a little bit. And the goose gets the roast potatoes, of course. Geese are very fatty when they're roasted, and goose fat is excellent for roasted potatoes. The carrots and parsnips, they didn't take as much of the chalk pastel as I wanted them to, and in pictures you'll see they usually get a darker brown line where they're touching the roasting pan, so I just use a brown pen. And now here a mix of Mod Podge and acrylic paint for the rabbit to make that fried flour coating. Gluing all these carrots and parsnips in place. I was determined to get all of them on the plate. It's a feast after all, right? Using the leftover Mod Podge and paint to partially fill in this gravy boat. I'm going to make gravy with UV resin later, but it doesn't hurt to halfway fill it. Rolling mushrooms around in glue. Everything on these plates is going to be shiny, so it won't matter if there's extra glue. And I'm lightening up the fried coating a little bit, and then darkening it just a little bit on the flat sides, as if it was in a shallow roasting pan. Here I had a technical difficulty. I was working for about 10 minutes before I realized I wasn't recording. So I have glazed this turkey, and I've added extra chalk pastels over the top of the liquid glaze as extra spices. Here I've finished the rabbit and mushrooms with some green herbs sprinkled onto the mushrooms, and then there's lemon wedges from the lemon I made last time. Now I'm glazing this goose. A little glaze goes a long way. I think I just use 1 drop for this goose and the potatoes. And then on top of that, a little sprinkle of black chalk pastel to be pepper. And then a tiny sprig of reindeer moss for parsley. Yeah, tapping on more chalk pastels as seasonings on these Cornish hens. More parsley. And another lemon wedge. So everything is done. And now I will have to take some time off so I can make some real food for the holidays. But I hope to see you again in a few days, and we will continue the feast. Thanks for watching. Happy holidays.